What up? I'm Bee, and welcome to my channel where we talk about all things true crime and current events. Today is another episode of Crafty Crimes where you and I sit down together, we talk about something related to the true crime world, and we do a little crocheting at the same time. Today we're going to be talking about the cult-like personal development group called NXIVM. And NXIVM was founded by Keith Raniere and Nancy Saltzman. So according to the stories that Keith told everyone around him, he was basically a child prodigy and genius. He was speaking in full sentences at age 1. He was reading books at age 2. By the time he was 13, he was skilled enough to be a concert-level pianist. He had an IQ of 240. Just by all accounts, a huge genius. However, that IQ test that he took was a take-home test that there was no time limit on, and it was not proctored in any way, shape, or form. And he graduated from college with a 2.26 GPA. So in America, our grade point system, it's from 0 to 4. So 2.26 out of 4, not really the best. But in any case, he didn't let that stop him from telling everyone how smart he was. And after college, he started working for a company called Amway. Now, if that sounds familiar, it's because Amway is a massive network marketing company. And network marketing companies are, people call them pyramid schemes because they're essentially pyramid schemes. They are the same thing as multi-level marketing companies. And the way they work, if you don't know, is you have these direct sellers, basically. So you have the people who started the company, and then they have direct sellers underneath them who buy either a starter kit or they buy their own inventory, and then they sell it to other people, but they also, the real incentive for them is bringing in other people underneath them to sell more. Like, they'll buy starter kits as well, and the people who bring in these other people get rewarded with money, basically. So a lot of these companies, the products that they sell are not good. They're low quality, they're inconsistent with each other. The products are not the main reason that these companies exist. It is for bringing other people in. And so they're sketchy. We all know someone involved in network marketing, and it's sketch. But so anyway, he worked for Amway for a little bit, and then eventually he quit and he started his own network marketing company called Consumers Byline. And the thing with network marketing companies is that, like I said, they're essentially pyramid schemes, but a lot of them, they stay in existence. They don't get shut down because technically they're not doing anything illegal, because technically they can prove that people make money or that the products they sell they make up for a certain amount of revenue, and so they don't get shut down because they're legally allowed to do it, even though it's not the greatest business model. In other words, it takes a lot for a network marketing company to be shut down, which is what happened to Keith's company in 1993. Basically, the company was being investigated in 20 different states, and then the state of New York filed a lawsuit against Keith and Consumers Byline for actually being a pyramid scheme and shut them down. And after that, he was looking into other things, trying to figure out a way to make money. His girlfriend at the time was like, you're such a genius, you're so smart, why are you spending your time doing this? You could be curing cancer. You could be doing these amazing things. And he was like, no, this is my platform. This is my purpose. These types of companies are how I'm going to change the world. And his girlfriend had met a woman named Nancy Saltzman. And Nancy at the time was a nurse. She was a trained hypnotist, and she was a practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. And if you don't know what neurolinguistic programming is, the most simple way I can describe it is using language to essentially rewire your brain to help you communicate differently, to help you break bad habits, and the intention of all of this is to make you a more successful person. Now, psychologists, psychiatrists, scientists who fall on the more traditional end of things think that neurolinguistic programming doesn't work. They think it's harmful, they think it's dangerous, it's not successful, it's pseudoscience. But a lot of people on like the new age metaphysical end of things really believe in it, and it is used in a lot of personal development programs or by a lot of people who do like law of attraction, manifestation. Not all of them believe in it, but it's very much aligned with that world. So Keith's girlfriend at the time had met Nancy, and she was like talking to her about Keith, about how he was just behaving in a way that she didn't really like, and she thought that some of the things he was doing were not the greatest, and she had a lot of concerns about his personality and the way that he conducted business. And for some reason, when Nancy and Keith met up, they thought it would be a great idea to form a personal development company. So they started this company. The idea was to do workshops, seminars, classes to help people be more successful and find true joy within their life. And then that turned into NXIVM. So this happened in 1998, and NXIVM's biggest goal was promoting these executive success programs. And the purpose of these programs was to help you actualize your human potential. And in the process of creating this, Nancy and Keith gave each other these nicknames that people who took their courses were to refer to them as. Keith was Vanguard and Nancy was Prefect. And the mission statement for their executive success programs is very long. Here it is. A world of successful people will be people a better world. Indeed, a world devoid of hunger, theft, dishonesty, envy, and insecurity. People will no longer try to destroy each other, steal from each other, down each other, or rejoice at another's demise. Success, ethics, and integrity are co-inspirational. I pledge to share and enroll people in ESP and its mission for myself and to help make the world a better place to live. So basically their approach to all of this was having these workshops, seminars, all of that, and you're supposed to overcome problems that have plagued you your entire life. And part of these classes was the use of in-group language. And this is something that you see with a lot of programs. A lot of people have this, a lot of different groups have this. You have this at your company sometimes where you have these words that are only understood by people within your group, that are only going to be understood by people who work with you, who do this activity with you, stuff like that. And so in-group language isn't necessarily harmful, but you also see it in a lot of cults because you encourage the use of this in-group language in order to encourage the people who within your group to only socialize with each other because they're the only ones who understand it. If you go out into the world, you talk to your family, your friends who are not interested in your group, and you talk to them like you talk to the people who are in it, they're not going to understand what you're saying. And so it's meant to distance you from those people so you are more focused and more loyal to your group. And in a lot of cases, especially with cults or harmful organizations, secret societies, stuff like that, this in-group language, these words that only you know, are kind of negative words. And so one of the words that they use in NXIVM is a parasite. And that is meant to refer to anyone who needs anything from you, basically. The whole way to be happier, according to NXIVM, is to focus on you. Whatever you want, whatever you need, that's your number one thing. And if somebody needs something from you, they're a parasite. They have low self-esteem. They rely on somebody else for their survival, and so they're bad for you. And then another one is disintegrations. And so disintegrations are something that's wrong with you, something from your childhood that has stuck with you into adulthood and is causing you whatever problem you're having. Both of these are very negative terms meant to either make you feel bad about yourself or recognize something negative in others. So NXIVM was founded in 1998, and in 2005, an actress named Sarah Edmondson, she was introduced to NXIVM and decided to take one of their courses. She took the introductory course, which was $2,000, and it was basically 3 14-hour day sessions in a row that were essentially very intense therapy. And when she first went, Keith was leading this, and he said, hey, throughout the course of this, you are going to hear some things that may make you feel uncomfortable. You may hear them and you may want to bolt. You might get scared. That is just proof that this process is working. This means that you are going to be successful within this program. So if you feel something that makes you feel that way, raise your hand. One of our coaches will come over to you, help talk you through it, and then you can rejoin the group. So Sarah went and she did this 3-day introductory course, and afterwards she felt incredible. She felt amazing. She had kind of this new outlook on life, on success. The people around her were like, you're glowing. What are you doing? Whatever it is, it's amazing. Like, you seem so happy. You seem so incredible. And so because of this, she got really into NXIVM, and she ended up being a member for 12 years and recruiting over 2,000 people to be a part of NXIVM as well, because she wanted them to experience the joy that she was experiencing too. And it's not like she went out on her own and decided to kind of be a walking advertisement for NXIVM. NXIVM had a huge focus on enrollment culture. Every workshop you went to, every class, every seminar, they talked about how we want to recruit as many people as possible to be in this. We want to change as many people's lives as we can. So tell everyone you know about it, bring them in. Like, enrollment culture was basically their number one focus. And these classes can range anywhere from $300 to $10,000. So according to Sarah, when people first come into the organization, because they have such a focus on enrollment, they treat every new person like a star, like a celebrity. Everyone is so friendly to them. Everyone wants to bring them in, say hi, like make them feel special. And so one way that they do this is by obviously being super friendly, and by Keith Raniere kissing everyone on the lips when he greets them. And you are highly encouraged to continue within the program, move up. They have these different colored sashes that you get depending on how high up you are within the group. Coaches have certain numbers of stripes on their sashes, and it's just a way to kind of make you feel important as you progress. So from the outside, this seems like such an incredible group. They had really wealthy members. They had people who were really influential in society taking their classes, joining. There was Richard Branson of Virgin Mobile. He took one of their classes. He didn't join the organization, but he took one of their classes and didn't really have anything bad to say about it. As well as Sheila Johnson, the founder of BET, Black Entertainment Television. She took one of the classes too. And again, she didn't join the group, but it seemed like everything was good. Additionally, in the early 2000s, the Dalai Lama went and spoke to NXIVM and basically endorsed this program. And so you have these really high up people joining. There was also Allison Mack who joined, and she was very high up within the organization. If you've heard anything about NXIVM, you know that Allison Mack was really highly involved in it. She was an actress from Smallville, and so she's pretty famous. There's also Catherine Oxenberg. She was an actress in the 80s. She was in Dynasty, so she's really popular, very wealthy. Her daughter India also joined. There was also Claire and Sarah Bronfman, who their dad was the president of Seagram's, and a ton of other like filmmakers, actors, actresses, people who have a very high social stock. They joined NXIVM and they promoted it. You know, if I'm just a regular person, but I see that all these successful people are within this group and I'm looking to improve my life, seems like a great organization to join. But people have been pretty skeptical of NXIVM essentially since the beginning. In 2003, Forbes actually did an article on NXIVM as well as Keith Raniere, calling him the world's strangest executive coach. And they also talked to Edgar Bronfman Sr., Sarah and Claire's dad, the president of Seagram's, because he had gone and taken one of the classes and did not like what he saw. He didn't like the class. He recognized that his daughters were giving a ton of money to this organization. And one of the main reasons that they were doing that is not only to take the classes, but Keith, he didn't own a car. He didn't have a bank account. He didn't have a house of his own. So anytime he needed something, he relied on donations of people who were in NXIVM. He relied on them for rides. He lived with his girlfriend for like 10 years without ever having anything of his own. It was always like relying on the kindness of his members. And so Edgar saw how much money his daughters had given this organization. They were becoming more distant from him. They weren't talking to him because he didn't really like NXIVM. And he told Forbes, I think this is a cult. And additionally, the monk who organized the whole event where the Dalai Lama went and endorsed NXIVM, his name was Tenzin Dondon. It was later found out that in 2009, he had an intimate relationship with Sarah Bronfman, and that's kind of a problem because monks are supposed to be celibate. And when this came out, he was suspended from his duties. He was in charge of the trust fund that provided money to the current Dalai Lama, and he was kind of given the boot because he broke the vows of a monk. So like I said, while it seems from the outside that this is a great organization to be in, there were a lot of skeptics, and they were skeptical for good reason, because as we look further into the organization, we see some pretty disturbing things. NXIVM at one point conducted something called the Fright Experiment, and this is where they took 100 members of their group. They were all volunteers. They came in and individually went into this room where they were greeted by a doctor who put a brainwave cap on them, put monitors on their fingers, sat them in a chair, and told them they're going to be watching a short film, and then after he was going to come in, debrief with them, get their opinion on it, just relax, watch the movie, and we'll talk about it when it's done. And the movie that they ended up showing was a short video of several women being decapitated and cut up by a group of men. It's horrifying. A psychologist who specializes in cult behavior and activity, she said that a lot of times cults or dangerous secret societies, groups, stuff like that, they will conduct experiments like this to test how far they think you can go within the group. If you see something like this, you freak out, you get angry, you leave, they know that you're not really going to be able to be bent to what they want. However, if you watch something like this, you're kind of upset or you have no reaction to it at all, they're going to know that you can go farther and farther within the organization and basically do what they want you to do. So only one person has come out talking about this Fright Experiment publicly. So it sounds like they only did it once, but honestly, I think if they did it once, they probably did it multiple times. It just hasn't come out yet. So in addition to having this weird experiment that they conducted with their members, they also had several groups that were offshoots of NXIVM. One of these was called Janus, and it was a group specifically for women, and it was meant to help them figure out who they were at their core. And this group was led by Allison Mack. And Sarah, the actress who I talked about earlier, she was invited to be part of this group, and she joined and ended up paying $15,000 for 3 8-day trainings, which is just an insane amount of money. And like I said, this group was promoted as being something to help empower women, figure out who they are at their core. Like, it's supposed to be something positive, but instead of being like, women are strong, women are brave, women are smart, it was like, women are flighty and we have to prove that we're not like that. Women don't follow through with their commitments and we have to prove that we're not like that. It was focusing on all the negative things that are said about women as opposed to focusing on the positive things that women can do, which gives you kind of a weird concept of yourself, to be completely honest. And this is kind of a common theme that you can see throughout different activities, different groups, just different things that are said about women in NXIVM. Because there was also another group called Society of Protectors Complete. And this was a group for men and women, but the men and women were treated very differently. So the women within the group, they were constantly teased. They were forced to repeat like embarrassing mantras. They were made to hold weights for long periods of time. There was even one woman who was given a jock strap and forced to hold it. I don't know for how long, but she was given it in front of everybody, completely humiliated because she was too assertive. And one member of the group, he said that it was like systematic misogyny. You know, this group is meant to be to empower everybody, to help them become stronger, help them become better. But the women who were in it ended up being more submissive to Keith than they were before. You know, Keith always said that men were the arbitrators of reality and that women were seen as less than human. They were too coddled, and this was a problem and something they needed to overcome. But again, instead of saying the ways that women are strong and brave or whatever, it's just focusing on the negative way that women are raised to be, or women inherently are. And now let's talk about DOS, which is another secret society within NXIVM that really, it caused a lot of problems. So DOS stands for Dominus Obsequious Sororium, which is Latin, and the literal translation of that is obsequious owner's sister. So obsequious basically means obedient to an excessive degree. So that's like the literal translation of it into English. But if you're interpreting it into English, it can be interpreted as master over the slave women. And this was basically marketed to specific members who were invited to join as a group for bad bitches. It's basically an empowerment group. You know, women are awesome. Come join this. It's going to be a culture of empowerment. And Sarah was one of the people who was invited by her best friend and maid of honor, Lauren, to be in this group. So Lauren Saltzman, she is the daughter of the co-founder Nancy, and she was already in this group, and she had invited a small number of other women to come join. And so she told Sarah that there was going to be a kind of like a trial period, and then after that there would be an initiation process. And in order to get this all started, all of the potential new members were going to have to make a vow of obedience, which was essentially a lifetime commitment to your coach to enter into a slave and master relationship. And when Sarah raised questions about this, because she was like, I don't want to be anybody's slave, I don't know, like, what do you mean you want me to enter into a slave-master relationship with you? She was like, no, it's not literal. It's just part of the whole ceremony of it all. Think of it as guru-disciple. And so the whole idea of this group was that there were masters and there were slaves. And underneath each master was their group of slaves. And then each group of slaves could bring in additional members to be their slaves, and they would be their masters. And so if you think about it, it's kind of like a pyramid scheme for personal development. And part of this whole trial period was setting up these rules and collecting information. And one of the rules was that you had to respond to your master within 60 seconds whenever they called you or texted you. Day or night, no matter what time, if you're in the shower, if you're driving, if you're grocery shopping, whatever, you had to respond within 60 seconds. And in one instance, Lauren had texted her group that she had invited to come in under her, and as a whole, they failed to reply within that 60-second period. And when they asked, because Lauren was like, this is bad, like you didn't respond within 60 seconds, there are going to be some really bad consequences. And so her whole group is like, well, what's going to happen? Like, we're sorry, we just couldn't respond. What's going to be the consequence? And instead of punishing them, Lauren said that she was going to get punished. She was going to be paddled 3 times and locked in a cage for an undetermined period of time. And so this is obviously a manipulation, because instead of scaring them into submitting and doing what you want, she's guilting them into it, because she's like, well, I'm bringing you guys in, I'm vouching for you guys, and you're failing to do what you're supposed to do, so now I'm gonna have to endure this physical pain. So as a group, her potential new members decided, well, we caused this, we're causing her to be in trouble, so we're going to do what we can. We're going to give ourselves a punishment worse than what she's getting. And they all agreed that as a group, they would get together, they would strip themselves of all their clothes, and they would paddle each other 10 times each. And they would film this and then send it to Lauren to make her feel better, to let her know, like, we're dedicated to you, we support you, we're so sorry that we let you down and got you in trouble, so this is us making up for it. So they did. And they sent it to Lauren, and then Lauren ended up sending it to her master to show, that they were sorry and that they took this seriously. And Sarah, she wasn't there. She was in Canada at the time, and they were in New York, but she said if she'd been there, she would have done it. She would have gotten naked and let someone paddle her 10 times. Another part of being in this group was getting a tattoo. And the whole thought of that was like, we are getting a physical representation on our body of this loyalty that we have to DOS and that we have to improving ourselves and becoming better. And everyone who's already in DOS has this tattoo. They all got it in the same spot. It's all the same thing. Once you get initiated, like part of your process of initiation is going to be this tattoo as well. But before we can do this tattoo, we need to collateralize your life to ensure that you will not tell anybody about this secret society. You won't share any of this information. We need to have this just in case, just to make sure that you are loyal. And the term collateralize your life is very extreme. It seems super scary. But the thing is that part of NXIVM that isn't really talked about is that as you move up within the organization, they require certain collateral from you. So it starts pretty small. At first it's just your money. It's paying for these courses. You're incentivized to come to participate because you've given us money for these courses. And then as you move up, it's what bad things have you done? What secrets do you have? I'm going to help you do this, but I need something from you first. You got to tell me something first so that way I know how to help you overcome this. Or, I'm going to tell you a secret to success. And so I need something from you to show that you're committed to this. And so as you build up to that, it gets more and more intense over time. And so obviously Sarah was scared and uncomfortable to give this information that Lauren was requesting, but it wasn't like it came completely out of left field. So in the end, Sarah ended up giving Lauren, as her collateral, a handwritten letter full of indiscretions from her 20s, things that, she wouldn't want other people to know that were pretty big secrets. She gave Lauren a nude photo of herself that would essentially end her career as an actress if it came out. And she recorded herself talking really poorly about the people in her family who were most important to her. Lauren had also asked Sarah to get a letter stating that her house now belonged to Lauren, and she wanted it, professionally, officially notarized, and she wanted to keep it. Like the deed to her house, she wanted it transferred into her name. And luckily, Sarah didn't do that. She was like, that's too much, that's too far, but here's all this other stuff. And so she gave her some pretty serious information about herself that could be extremely damaging if it ever got out. And with that, Lauren decided that that was enough and she could now enter the initiation process. So initiation day was for everyone who was going to be coming in under Lauren. They all went to Alice and Mac's house in Albany, New York. As a group, they were stripped naked and led into this room with a surgical table on it because they were all going to be getting their tattoos. And they were all in there at the same time. And what they were supposed to do was, while one person was getting their tattoo, other people were going to be holding them down, and someone else was going to be filming on Lauren's phone the entire thing of them getting their tattoo. And so when the first woman went onto the table to get it, they then realized that it was not a tattoo. It was a brand that they were going to be getting with a cautery pen. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically burning your skin. Like ripping your skin with a burning hot pen. It's incredibly painful. None of these girls had any anesthesia, any, sort of painkiller, any numbing cream, nothing. Completely consciously and awake, they had their skin burned with this Latin symbol that was meant to represent DOS. And Sarah definitely did not want to do it. She was like, I see this girl writhing in pain. I'm holding her legs down for 40 minutes. This has got to be horrifying. I didn't want a tattoo in the first place, but I agreed to do it because I thought it was going to be, a bonding thing. It was going to make me stronger. And now you're telling me that you're going to brand me? I don't want to do this. But Lauren went up to her and she was like, hey, you got to prove that you're dedicated. You have to prove that you are not flighty, that you are not flaky. You made this commitment. You have to do it. Prove how strong you are. Prove that your soul is separate from your body. Prove that you can grow. So she talked her into it. Sarah got the brand and she said that it was horrible. It was worse than childbirth. Like, it was just such an intense pain. But after she did it, she felt euphoric, essentially. She was like, I'm so strong. I didn't want to do this, but I went through with it. I did it. I feel so empowered. I'm so glad that I went through with this. I'm so glad that I did this. And then after she got her brand, it was her turn to hold the phone to record it while somebody else got their brand. And while she was holding it, Lauren got a text message from someone with Keith Raniere's initials saying, how are all the girls doing with this process? And it really confused her because when Lauren told her about this and when Allison talked to her about this, it was like, this is just for women. This is just for us. Keith has no involvement in it. No other men are involved in this. It is just for women. And so it's not like it said that the text message was from Keith, but it was his initials. And so that kind of put a pit in her stomach and kind of planted the seed of, I don't think that women are the ones who are controlling this. I think that Keith might be giving these orders, might be in charge and telling us what to do, and he might be the ultimate master within this group. And it kind of sketched her out, but she tried to ignore it. She went through the rest of the initiation process and, was normal for a few weeks. But then she took a little bit of a deeper look at the brand. And the brand, I didn't even tell you this, the brand was on the pelvic region right underneath your underwear line. Like right there, a super sensitive area, a very private area. And that's where it was. And so she's looking at it and she realizes that the brand is not a Latin symbol. It is a combination of Keith Raniere and Allison Mack's initials. And she freaks out. She realizes that, yes, Keith is the one pulling the strings on this. Keith knows about this whole master-slave relationship. This all has to be his idea. Another way for him to be in charge and control women. And so she ended up calling Marc Vincente, who was her friend basically since she entered NXIVM. And they had gotten really close. Like, they had gotten together to set up a lot of different events and plan different things for NXIVM. They were super close. And so she told him about DOS and the branding and the initials and everything. And he was enraged. He had noticed a few things that were kind of off, that were not necessarily on the up and up within NXIVM. And he was trying to kind of push them aside, be like, this group has done so much good for me. It's a positive group. It's a good group. These things are just coincidences. I've got to brush them under the rug. But when he heard that she was branded, that was the line. He was like, that's too much. This is dangerous. I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't. This crosses the line. We have to leave. We can't be part of this group anymore. And Sarah didn't want to leave because of the collateral that she had given to Lauren. She was really scared about all that stuff coming out, and Marc basically told her, well, I'm done. I'm resigning from every position I have within this group. I'm leaving. You need to tell your husband. You need to make peace with whatever it is that you have given them, because this is dangerous and we need to go. After that phone call, after seeing that Marc actually resigned and left NXIVM, Sarah told her husband Anthony, and he, as anyone would be, was pissed. He was a member of NXIVM too, but he was like, we're done, we're out. Like, branding you is too much. So they ended up leaving the group, resigning from everything, no longer talking to people within it. And Sarah actually went to the New York Times and did an interview with them, telling them about DOS, about what she'd been through, and about the brand. And after this came out, NXIVM obviously got a lot of bad press, and Keith addressed it on the website. He wrote this letter saying that Sarah was a liar. There was no branding, there was no validity to any of these claims, and people really kind of turned against Sarah, calling her a liar, saying that she was just making this up to make them look bad. Some of them even threatened her, but some people believed her, and after she was brave enough to come out and talk to the New York Times about it, more people started talking and more people started sharing their experiences. And when this happened, a ton of negative stuff came out about NXIVM. It was revealed that some of these masters within DOS had given assignments to their slaves to have sex with Keith Raniere, which they did. And after that, some women outside of DOS, who were also in NXIVM though, came out and said that Keith had sex with them, and it wasn't because they were attracted to him or they were in any sort of relationship. It was because he said it was for their personal growth, and that doing this was going to transfer some of his godlike power into them. Additionally, one woman was blindfolded and led into a room by Keith Raniere. She was tied to a table, and then Keith started walking around her, like walking around the table in circles, asking her questions about her sexual history, while someone who she didn't know, like she didn't know who it was, started performing oral sex on her. Later came out that the person who was performing oral sex on her was a 15-year-old girl who Keith was also having sex with. And additionally, this 15-year-old girl, her name was Camila, her whole family was from Mexico and they moved to New York in order to be part of NXIVM. And Keith had not only slept with her, but her two older sisters as well. And her middle sister, she wasn't interested in Keith. She was just doing it because he coerced her into it. And he found out that she was interested romantically in somebody else. And this was not okay because, according to Keith, women were built to be monogamous. They were meant to only be with one man, and he was the man that she was supposed to be with. But men, on the other hand, men are polyamorous. And yes, that is the wrong use of the term because what he's looking for is polygamy, but I think either he just doesn't know what polyamory is or he's using it to make it seem less like outdated, because when you hear polygamy, a lot of people have negative feelings about it, whereas polyamory seems more consensual and acceptable. And so he said that men were meant to be polyamorous, but because she liked somebody else, she was ordered to be locked in a room by herself for almost 2 years. And her whole family was there. Her whole family knew that she had been locked up, but he told them that it was because she needed to learn a lesson about pride. She had been prideful, and this was holding her back in her personal development, so she needed to learn that lesson by being alone. Eventually, her dad and another member of NXIVM got her out of this room and drove her to the Mexican border, and she never came back. Additionally, there was a group of about 20 women that Keith was regularly having sex with on like a rotating schedule, and this was because the women wanted to be with him. This wasn't any sort of coercion, but it was about 20 women, and he was extremely critical of their physical appearance. His ideal body type was this, like stick thin, as tiny as possible. And so he basically coerced these women into sticking to a diet of less than 500 calories per day. And Mark, the same person who left when Sarah told him about the branding, he had noticed that these women were all becoming extremely thin. They looked extremely unhealthy. Their skin was basically transparent, and he didn't think it was okay, so he approached Keith about it, and Keith told him, "That's none of your business, don't worry about it." But obviously he still had it in his head. And this was one of the things I was talking about that he had been kind of trying to ignore up until Sarah told him about the branding and about DOS. And so after that, obviously he's still thinking about it. He notices Allison Mack, a very high-ranking member within NXIVM, is getting extremely thin as well, and she's behaving really erratically, just not like her normal self. So again, he approached Keith about it, and he said, I'm really concerned about this. Allison just kind of seems broken. And Keith told Marc, well, that's because I'm trying to break her. So after this, Marc wrote a letter to the senior members of NXIVM, and obviously included Keith in it, and said, I'm really concerned about this. This doesn't seem normal. This doesn't seem okay. We need to do something about it. And they just ignored his letter. So all of these inappropriate relationships, the specific targeting of women, is just further proof that it is systemized misogyny. Men within the group don't really have anything bad happen to them. They get the personal development, they grow, they become more successful, but these women are constantly targeted. Whether it's for humiliation, for breaking them down so they'll do what he wants, for getting money from them, whatever it is specifically targeting these women who just want to improve their lives. And you may wonder, if these women are being treated so poorly, if it's such a rough thing for them, why do they stay? First of all, the collateral that they've given to Keith and other high-ranking members within NXIVM. And second of all, because Keith had these scare tactics that he would use. He would threaten them, he would threaten to expose them, he would have people follow them around. And he also had these tactics for people who were never even in the group. He would have people's bank accounts broken into, their personal computers hacked. He would hire people to dig through their trash, to investigate them personally, get information on them, and make it public so that way they were scared to speak out against the group. There was even one woman that Keith had been dating for a long time, and when she broke up with him, he was angry. And he said, the next time I see you, it'll either be when you're in jail or when you're dead. And I guess he was partially inadvertently right about that, because on March 26, 2018, Keith was in Mexico, and the Mexican police force came to arrest him. And when they did this, he was with Lauren Saltzman, and he hid in the closet of the house that they were in. He hid in the room, in the closet, and he told Lauren, go talk to them, go get them to leave. And Lauren later said, she was like, I was so confused because I was so used to him telling me that women couldn't do anything, that they were weak, that men were strong, they were take charge kind of people, and women were just kind of useless. So it was super weird for him to be in the closet and him to tell me to go talk to these police officers. But so she went and she was trying to talk to them and get them to leave, and they ended up breaking into the room with their guns drawn, and they arrested Keith and extradited him to the United States. A few weeks later, on April 13th, 2018, Keith was charged with sex trafficking conspiracy, and conspiracy to commit forced labor. And a week after his charges were announced, Allison Mack was arrested for her part in recruiting these women and grooming them for sex trafficking, human trafficking, forced labor, all these horrible things. And at first she denied any guilt, basically. She was like, no, that's not what we're doing. That's not what's happening. But she pretty quickly realized that this stuff wasn't going to go away. And she agreed to testify and give the officials as much information as they needed in order to get a plea bargain. And she ended up only having to plead guilty to racketeering and racketeering conspiracy, which are far less intense and far less damaging charges to have on your record as opposed to sex slavery charges. So she got off pretty easy. So they arrested Keith in March of 2018, and then in May of 2019, the trial started. It lasted about 6 weeks, and then on June 19th, 2019, Keith was found guilty on all 7 charges that were leveled against him, and that included the forced labor charges and sex trafficking charges, as well as some additional ones for racketeering and conspiracy to commit fraud. And obviously Keith is kind of the biggest player in this. He's the one who wanted all these donations from people, wanted to create this sex slave group. He's the one who was having sex with underage people, but he wasn't the only one who knew about all the sketchy stuff going on, and there were a few other people who got charged along with him. So there's Nancy Saltzman, the president and co-founder of NXIVM. She pleaded guilty to racketeering conspiracy. And then her daughter Lauren also pleaded guilty to racketeering and racketeering conspiracy, which is very much getting off easy considering the fact that she tried to recruit people to be slaves underneath her. But there's also Claire Bronfman, the Seagram's heiress, who was also involved in getting the Dalai Lama to come in and donated a ton of money to the organization. She was on the executive board of NXIVM, and she pleaded guilty to conspiracy to conceal and harbor illegal aliens for financial gain and fraudulent use of identification documents. There was also Kathy Russell, who is NXIVM's bookkeeper, who was charged with visa fraud. And visa fraud relates to like a work visa or a student visa that someone from outside of America would need in order to legally come to America for a temporary time. So all of these people, including Allison Mack and Keith Raniere, they're waiting to be sentenced. They've all pled guilty. Well, Keith was found guilty, but everyone else pleaded guilty to their charges. And they're awaiting sentencing. Keith is going to be charged in January of 2020, so next month, relatively soon, and he could face 15 years in prison all the way up to life. It just depends. We won't know until they actually sentence him. And then everyone else is going to be sentenced later in the year. So that's all we have for now about NXIVM, the secret societies, the slave master relationships that, I don't know, I feel like you have to kind of be delusional to think that people aren't going to talk about that. I mean, I know that you have this collateral, but you can only push people so far. So this was definitely a crazy story. I remember when I first heard about it on the news, I thought the whole program, I thought NXIVM as a whole was just sex trafficking, and I wondered how it could get so big and how many people could be involved if that was just like the straight mission of it. But I think it makes more sense when you understand how NXIVM was founded, what it was like for the first few years, and you kind of see what Keith was building up to. Anyway, let me know in a comment down below if you had heard of this story, if you knew about all of the stuff that was going on, or if this is completely new to you. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts on it, so definitely leave me a comment letting me know. And while you're doing that, if you would consider liking this video or subscribing to my channel, that would be amazing. And if you're subscribed already, thank you so much. I am so appreciative of you, and I love being able to just sit here, hang out, and talk about whatever. Sincerely, it is so cool that you are interested in learning about these topics, in learning about true crime and things that are going on in the world. It's just awesome. So truly thank you for being here. Additionally, I did want to just give a reminder. I announced this in my last video, but I want to put it in here as well in case you didn't get a chance to watch that video. I do have a submission form linked in the description box. So if you have a story that you want to see covered, if you have something going on that you want commentary on, whatever it is, you can feel free to click that link, select what type of video you want, and then fill in the description of what you think the video should be about. You don't have to put any personal information in there or anything. It's just the video and then the description. So please feel free to use that. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Please be kind to people, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.